Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, her hands clasped behind her back. The chamber was massive, designed to hold representatives from 47 different alien species. Above her, the crystalline dome showed the stars beyond, a reminder that this building floated in space, neutral territory for all. She had stood here hundreds of times before. Each time she had been patient. Each time she had smiled and nodded and accepted whatever new restriction the Council placed on humanity. Today would be different. The human delegation will remain silent, said Council Speaker Thulzahn. His species, the Valorians, resembled giant mantises with blue exoskeletons. He clicked his mandibles together, a sign of dismissal. The vote has concluded. All human colonies beyond your home system will accept Council supervision. This is for galactic stability. Elena felt her jaw tighten. 300 years. For 300 years, humanity had played by their rules. When the ships had appeared over Earth in 2247, humanity had been terrified. First contact, proof of alien life. The Galactic Council had seemed like a dream at first. Advanced civilizations, technologies beyond imagination, a place among the stars. The dream had died quickly. The Council had looked at human history and declared humanity too dangerous, too violent, too unstable. They pointed to Earth's wars, its conflicts, its divisions. They refused to see the progress, the cooperation, the hunger to learn and grow. Instead, they had placed humanity in a cage. Humans could only colonize 12 systems. No more. Human ships could only be certain sizes, certain speeds. Human weapons were restricted. Human technology was monitored. For 3 centuries, Earth and its colonies had lived under occupation in all but name. Always watched, always limited, always treated like children who might hurt themselves. And humanity had endured it. They had been patient. They had followed every rule, accepted every insult, swallowed every humiliation. Elena herself had spent 40 years as an ambassador, arguing humanity's case, begging for scraps of freedom like a dog hoping for table scraps. Speaker Thulzahn, Elena said, her voice steady. We cannot accept this. The chamber erupted. Dozens of species began chittering, roaring, buzzing in their various languages. The translation devices built into the chamber walls worked overtime. Cannot? A Krellian representative rose. The Krellians were warriors, reptilian and massive. Humans do not dictate terms to this council. You are the youngest species here. You have no rights that we do not grant you. Elena looked at the Krellian. His name was Vormak, and he had voted against humanity at every opportunity. We have the same rights as any species. The right to govern ourselves. The right to grow. The right to exist without your boots on our necks, more chaos. The speaker slammed his staff against the floor, creating a booming sound that silenced the chamber. Ambassador Vasquez, you forget yourself. The Council has been more than generous with humanity. We could have quarantined your entire species when we found you. Your world was still healing from your last global war. We gave you the stars instead. You gave us a cage, Elena said quietly, and you called it generosity. The speaker's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. The vote stands. Council supervisors will be assigned to each human colony within the month. They will ensure compliance with galactic law and oversee human expansion. This discussion is over. Elena felt something break inside her, not her spirit, her restraint. She had carried humanity's patience like a weight for so long, she had forgotten what it felt like to be free of it. Then we are done here, she said. The speaker tilted his head. You accept the Council's decision? No, Elena said. She turned and walked toward the exit. We're done pretending you'll ever treat us as equals. We're done begging. We're done being patient. She paused at the doorway and looked back at the assembled aliens. Some looked confused. Others looked angry. A few, she noticed, looked worried. Good, they should be. 300 years, she said. For 300 years, you've mistaken our patience for weakness. You've mistaken our cooperation for surrender. You thought because we followed your rules we had accepted them. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You were wrong. Elena left the chamber. The doors sealed behind her with a hiss. Her aide, a young man named David, waited in the corridor. He looked nervous. They're going to be furious, he said. Let them be, Elena replied. She pulled out a small communication device, one shielded from Council monitoring. Humanity had learned to hide things long ago. Send the message. Protocol Prometheus. David's eyes widened. Are you sure? If we do this, there's no going back. Elena thought about her grandfather. He had been alive during first contact, had watched the council ships arrive, and humanity's hope turned to disappointment. He had told her once when she was young that patience was a virtue, but only to a point. A person who never fights back isn't peaceful, he had said. They're just a victim waiting to happen. I'm sure, she said. Humanity has waited long enough. David nodded and sent the message. It would reach Earth in hours, then spread to every human colony. Protocol Prometheus. The plan humanity had been preparing since the day they realized the Council would never willingly grant them freedom. Elena walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council thought they were in control. They thought humanity would accept this latest humiliation, like they had accepted all the others. They thought humans were weak. They would learn the truth soon enough. Humanity wasn't weak. Humanity had been gathering strength, hiding weapons, planning strategies, and studying their jailers for 3 centuries. Every restriction the Council placed had been a lesson. Every piece of technology they grudgingly shared had been reverse-engineered and improved. Every insult had been remembered. The Council had written humanity off as primitive and dangerous. They were half right. Humans were dangerous. But they weren't primitive. They were patient. They were clever. And they were done playing by rules designed to keep them down. Elena's communication device buzzed. A message from Earth. President Sarah Okonkwo's face appeared on the small screen. Prometheus confirmed, the president said. All colonies are ready. All ships are in position. We've been waiting for this day, Elena. Tell me, how did they react? Like we expected, Elena replied. Arrogant, dismissive, certain of their superiority. President Okonkwo nodded slowly. Good, that will make this easier. She paused. Elena, we're about to change everything. The galaxy will never be the same. It needs to change, Elena said. We gave them 3 centuries to do it peacefully. They chose this, agreed. Come home, Ambassador. You've spent enough time in that chamber. The next time you see those aliens, it will be on our terms. Elena smiled for real this time. I'm on my way, Madam President. Let's show them what humanity can do when we stop holding back. She left the council station on the last human shuttle. Behind her, the aliens began to realize something was wrong. Human representatives from every office were leaving. Human ships were departing. All across council space, humanity was pulling back, consolidating, preparing. The Galactic Council had crossed a line. They had pushed humanity one time too many, and now they were about to learn why patience should never be mistaken for weakness. The mask was coming off, and the galaxy was about to see what humanity had been hiding underneath it all along. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the UHSV Defiance, watching the stars through the main viewport. His crew worked quietly around him, but he could feel the tension. They all knew what was coming. They had trained for this day for years. Status report, he said. Lieutenant Amara Johnson looked up from her station. All systems green, Captain. The retrofitting is complete. Weapons are online and ready. Marcus nodded. The Defiance looked like a research vessel from the outside. That's what her registration said. That's what the Council believed. They had inspected her twice, found nothing but scientific equipment and survey gear. They had never looked hard enough. Hidden behind false panels and inside modified cargo bays, the Defiance carried enough firepower to take on a Council cruiser. And she wasn't alone. Across human space, 300 other civilian ships were revealing their true nature. How long until the President's address? Marcus asked. 10 minutes, Amara replied. Marcus had been 12 years old during first contact. He remembered the excitement, the wonder. His parents had taken him outside to watch the Council ships descend. They had all believed it would be the beginning of something wonderful. Instead, it had been the beginning of 300 years of humiliation. He had joined the United Human Space Fleet at 18, back when it was still called that. The Council had made them change the name to Space Service because fleet sounded too military. They had limited ship sizes, weapon types, and even crew training. But humans were clever. They had found ways around every restriction. The Defiance had been built in sections across 5 different shipyards. On paper, each section was a separate project. A mining vessel here, a research platform there. Only when they were assembled in deep space did the truth become clear. She was a warship, disguised as something harmless. Captain, we're receiving the signal. The communications officer called out. Presidential address, all channels. Put it on screen, Marcus ordered. President Sarah Okonkwo appeared. She was in her 70s, but her eyes were sharp and her voice was strong. Behind her, the flags of Earth and the United Human Colonies hung side by side. "Citizens of humanity," she began. "Today I speak not just to our people, but to the entire galaxy. For 300 years we have lived under the restrictions of the Galactic Council. We accepted their rules. We followed their laws. We hoped that patience and cooperation would earn us respect and equality." Marcus saw his crew listening intently. Every human in the galaxy was watching this. "We were wrong," the president continued. "The Council does not respect patience. They see it as weakness. They do not value cooperation. They see it as submission. Today, they demanded that we accept their supervisors in our colonies. They demanded we surrender what little freedom we have left." Her expression hardened. "We refuse. Humanity will not live in a cage any longer. We have followed the Council's rules for 3 centuries. Now we will make our own rules." Marcus felt his heart racing. This was it. The moment everything changed. "To the Galactic Council we say this." President Okonkwo's voice was cold now. "You mistook our restraint for weakness. You believed our patience meant we had accepted your authority. You were wrong. For 300 years we have been preparing for this day. We have studied you. We have learned from you. And we have surpassed you." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Every restriction you placed on us became a challenge we overcame. Every technology you reluctantly shared, we improved. Every insult you gave us, we remembered. You thought you were containing a threat. Instead, you created one." Marcus saw several of his crew members smiling grimly. They had all felt the same frustration, the same anger. Now, finally, they could act. "Effective immediately, all human colonies reject Council oversight. All human vessels are authorized to defend themselves and our territory with all available force. We do not seek war, but we will not accept subjugation. The age of humanity's patience is over." The transmission ended. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Amara spoke. "Orders, Captain?" Marcus turned to his crew. "Activate combat systems. Drop all civilian protocols. It's time to show them what the Defiance really is." Throughout the ship, panels slid back. False walls retracted. The research vessel transformed. Weapons ports opened. Shield generators that weren't supposed to exist hummed to life. Engines that were too powerful for a civilian craft revealed their true capacity. "Sir, we're receiving similar signals from the rest of the fleet," the communications officer reported. "All ships are going active." On Marcus's tactical display, 300 ships suddenly changed from green civilian markers to red military ones. Each one had been hiding its true nature. Each one was now ready for war. "Council ships are detecting the changes," Amara said. "They're broadcasting confused signals. Some are moving to intercept." "Let them come," Marcus said. "They think they know what human ships can do. They're about to learn they know nothing." Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. On New Kyoto, a human colony world, the governor stood before a council enforcement team. "You need to leave," she told them. "Now, while you still can." The council supervisor, a tall alien with gray skin and too many joints in his arms, laughed. "You cannot order us to leave. The council has authority here." "Not anymore," the governor replied. Behind her, human soldiers stepped forward. They carried weapons the council had never seen before. Weapons that had been hidden in warehouses disguised as mining equipment or construction tools. The supervisor stopped laughing. "This is illegal. You cannot threaten council representatives." "We're not threatening," the governor said calmly. "We're informing. You have 1 hour to return to your ship and leave this system. After that, you will be considered hostile forces in human territory." On Earth, in the command center deep beneath Geneva, military commanders were coordinating the largest operation in human history. Ships were moving into defensive positions around every human colony. Supply lines that had been secretly established over decades were activating. Weapons factories that had been producing industrial equipment were revealed to be military production facilities. Admiral Jennifer Park watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. She was 90 years old and had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. "All ships report ready," an aide told her. "Every colony has activated defensive protocols. The council bases in our territory are surrounded." "Good," Admiral Park said. "Now we wait. The council will respond. When they do, we'll show them what 300 years of preparation looks like." Back on the Defiance, Marcus received new orders. "We're to proceed to Sector 7, he told his crew. "There's a council listening post there. They've been spying on human transmissions for decades. It's time to shut them down. Finally, Amara said. I've wanted to visit that post for years. Marcus smiled. Just remember, we're not raiders. We're liberators. Any council personnel who surrender will be treated well. But that post is coming down. As the Defiance accelerated toward its target, Marcus thought about his parents. They had lived their entire lives under council rule. They had died believing humanity would always be second-class citizens. He wished they could see this. Wished they could know that their patience hadn't been for nothing. Humanity had spent 3 centuries learning, growing stronger, and preparing. The council had thought time was on their side, that eventually humans would accept their place. They had been so wrong. Time had been humanity's weapon, and now the blade was finally striking. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson. Never mistake patience for acceptance. Never mistake restraint for weakness. And never ever push humanity past the breaking point, because when humans finally stopped holding back, they were unstoppable. Council Admiral Zixathara stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human colony of New Kyoto had just destroyed 3 of his ships. 3. In less than 10 minutes. How is this possible? He demanded. Intelligence said the humans had minimal defenses. Light weapons only. His aide, a younger Krellian warrior named Score, looked equally confused. Sir, their weapons. They're not in our database. We've never seen anything like them. Zixathara was a veteran of a dozen conflicts. His species, the Krellians, were the Council's warriors. They prided themselves on military superiority. He had expected this to be a simple operation. Land troops take control of the colony, establish Council authority. Instead, his fleet was being torn apart. Pull back, he ordered. Regroup at the system's edge. We need to reassess, but pulling back proved difficult. Human ships appeared from nowhere, small and fast, striking at his vessels and disappearing before his gunners could lock on. They fought like nothing he had ever encountered. No formation, no predictable patterns, just chaos and aggression. One of his cruisers exploded, then another. Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count them. Score shouted. Full retreat! Zixathara commanded. All ships emergency jump to Council space now. His fleet scattered, jumping away in disorder. Of the 15 ships he had brought to New Kyoto, only 9 escaped. In his 40 years of military service, Zixathara had never been defeated so thoroughly. The humans hadn't just beaten him. They had humiliated him. Similar scenes played out across the border. Council enforcement fleets arrived at Nova Edinburgh and Proxima Station expecting easy victories. Instead, they encountered prepared defenses, hidden weapons, and tactical brilliance that shocked them. The humans fought with a ferocity that seemed impossible for a species the Council had deemed managed. In Council High Command, Speaker Thulzon watched the reports flood in. Every enforcement mission had failed. Worse, humans were now launching counterattacks. Those research vessels were revealing themselves to be warships, and they were very good at their job. How did we miss this? He demanded. We inspected their facilities. We monitored their transmissions. How did they hide an entire military fleet? The intelligence director, a spider-like alien named Wesktor, trembled. They built them in pieces, Speaker. Each component was legal on its own. Only when assembled did they become weapons. And they did the assembly in deep space where we don't monitor. Thulzon wanted to break something. 300 years. The Council had spent 3 centuries keeping humanity contained. They had thought humans were under control. They had been so certain of their superiority. What about their technology, he asked. Our experts said they were decades behind us. Wesktor showed him a holographic display. This is a human weapon captured from a destroyed ship. We've analyzed it, Speaker. It's based on Valorian pulse technology, but they've improved it. It's 30% more efficient than our best designs. That's impossible, Thulzon said. Yet it's real, Wesktor replied. Every piece of technology we shared with them, thinking we were helping primitive species they studied and enhanced. They learned from us, then surpassed us. Thulzon felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Fear. Show me everything. The intelligence reports painted a terrifying picture. Human agents had infiltrated Council space decades ago. They had mapped every military base, every supply route, every weakness. They knew where Council ships were stationed. They knew response times. They knew everything. They weren't just obeying us, Thulzon realized. They were studying us like we were test subjects. Worse, Wesktor said. They were studying us like prey. Meanwhile, Captain Marcus Chen and the Defiance reached the Council listening post in Sector 7. It was a small station, designed to intercept human communications. 50 Council personnel operated it, thinking they were safely hidden in neutral space. Target locked, Amara reported. Weapons ready. Marcus opened a channel to the station. Council Station. This is Captain Chen of the United Human Vessel Defiance. You have been conducting illegal surveillance on human territory for 43 years. We are shutting you down. Evacuate immediately. You have 15 minutes, the response came quickly. Human ship, you have no authority here. This station is Council property in neutral space. You are in violation of galactic law. Marcus almost laughed. Galactic law? The same law that says we can't govern our own colonies? That law is dead. Evacuate now or we will remove you. You wouldn't dare attack a Council facility. Marcus nodded to Amara. Fire a warning shot. Close enough to make them nervous. The Defiance's main weapon fired. A beam of concentrated energy passed within 50 meters of the station, close enough to make their shields flare. On the station, alarms would be screaming. Next shot won't miss, Marcus said calmly. 14 minutes. It took them only 5 minutes to decide. Escape pods began launching from the station. Marcus watched them go, then destroyed the empty facility with a single shot. Decades of surveillance data, gone. One more Council eye in human space, blinded. Back on Earth, President Okonkwo met with her military advisors. Status report, she requested. Admiral Park pulled up a holographic map. All border engagements have gone in our favor, Madam President. Council forces retreated from every confrontation. We've destroyed or captured 37 Council military vessels. Our losses are minimal. 3 ships damaged, none destroyed. Casualties? 47 wounded. 2 killed. Admiral Park's voice was grim. Every loss hurt. But compared to what they had expected, it was remarkably light. Okonkwo nodded. And the Council's response? Confused, Admiral Park said. They're pulling back, regrouping. Their intelligence was completely wrong about our capabilities. We've achieved total surprise. It won't last, Okonkwo said. Soon they'll commit real forces. This was just their enforcement units. What happens when they send their main battle fleets? Admiral Park smiled. Then we show them what we've really been working on, Madam President. The enforcers got to see our revealed civilian ships. The main fleets will get to see our actual military. Around the galaxy, word spread quickly. The humans had rejected Council authority and won their first battles. Some species were shocked. Others were terrified. A few were quietly pleased. The Ven, a peaceful species who had themselves been bullied by the Council for centuries, sent a secret message to Earth. We are watching with great interest, it said. Perhaps the Council is not as powerful as they claim, but the Council was far from defeated. In the Great Assembly, Speaker Thulzon addressed the 47-member species. The humans have committed an act of war against galactic authority. They must be brought to heel. I call for a vote. Do we commit our full military might to remind humanity of their place? The vote was not unanimous. Some species argued for negotiation, but the majority, frightened of appearing weak, voted yes. The Council would commit 60% of its combined fleet to the human problem. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. They believed their numbers would overwhelm humanity. They believed their experience would triumph. They were about to learn that humans had been preparing for exactly this response. Every war game, every simulation, every training exercise for 3 centuries had been focused on one question. How do we defeat an enemy that outnumbers us 20-1? Humanity had found answers. Lots of them. Admiral Zixthera, recovering from his defeat at New Kyoto, received his new orders. He was to lead a battle group of 200 ships to crush the human colony at Proxima Station. 200 ships against 1 colony. It should be easy. But as he prepared his fleet, Zixthera couldn't shake his unease. The humans he had fought didn't fight like any enemy he knew. They were aggressive to the point of madness, but also clever. They took risks that should have destroyed them, but somehow survived. They fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to prove. Sir, are you worried? Score asked him privately. Zixthera looked at his aide. My grandfather once told me about a predator on my homeworld. Small, weak compared to larger hunters, but it didn't hunt like them. It waited, it learned. It struck when you were confident it was no threat. He paused. The humans remind me of that predator. But we outnumber them, Score said. So did all the other prey, Zixthara replied. That predator is extinct now. We hunted them all. But we never forgot the lesson they taught us. Never assume a small enemy is a weak enemy. The Council fleet began its march toward human space, confident in their numbers. The humans watched them come and prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson of their own. The battle for Proxima Station became known as the Turning Point. It was where the Council learned that numbers alone couldn't defeat humanity. Admiral Zixthara brought 200 ships to the system. He expected resistance, but believed his overwhelming force would crush it quickly. He was wrong from the moment he arrived. The human defense fleet numbered only 30 ships. On paper, it should have been a massacre. But humans didn't fight like the Council expected. They didn't form battle lines or defend positions. Instead, they attacked. Sir, the humans are charging us, Score said in disbelief. 30 ships against 200 and the humans were attacking. It seemed like suicide. But within minutes, Zixthara understood the strategy. The human ships were small and impossibly fast. They flew through his formation like sharks through a school of fish, striking and vanishing before his gunners could lock on. They're targeting our command ships, he realized. They're not trying to win by destroying us all. They're trying to cut off our coordination. It was working. Human weapons tore through shields that should have protected his ships. Human pilots flew maneuvers that should have killed them from the G-forces alone. Later, the Council would learn that human pilots used advanced medical technology to survive accelerations that would liquefy other species. 2 of his command cruisers exploded. A third lost power. Suddenly, sections of his fleet couldn't communicate with each other. The organized attack became chaos. All ships break into wings, Zixthara ordered. Fight independently if needed. Don't let them isolate you. But the humans adapted instantly. They changed tactics, now focusing on his supply ships. They weren't trying to destroy his fleet. They were trying to make it unsustainable. A human voice came over the emergency channel. Council ships, this is Captain Marcus Chen. You're a long way from home and your supply lines are cut. We can do this all day. Can you? Zixthara checked his tactical display. Chen was right. 3 of his supply vessels were destroyed. 2 more were damaged, and human reinforcements were arriving. Where were they coming from? The answer horrified him. The humans had ships hidden everywhere. Small bases and asteroids on moons in deep space. They had been preparing defensive positions for decades, and the Council had never noticed. After 6 hours of brutal fighting, Zixthara made a decision that saved his fleet. Retreat. All ships jump out of the system. He had lost 47 ships. 47 out of 200. The humans had lost 9. As his fleet limped back to Council space, Zixthara knew the truth. The Council was losing this war. Similar stories emerged from every front. Human forces didn't just defend. They raided, they ambushed, they struck deep into Council territory and disappeared. They fought with a creativity that the Council's rigid military doctrines couldn't counter. On the ground, human Marines proved equally terrifying. A Council battalion landed on New Edinburgh, expecting to fight civilians. Instead, they encountered trained soldiers who fought with tactics the Council had never seen. The humans used their environment, moved in small teams, and seemed to anticipate every Council move. A Krellian soldier named Tokvar found himself pinned down by human fire. His squad was dead or dying. A human soldier approached weapon ready. Tokvar expected execution. Instead, the human offered medical aid. You're wounded, the human said through a translator. We'll treat you. This doesn't have to be your last day. Tokvar stared. Why? We came to conquer your world. The human, a woman with dark skin and tired eyes, shrugged. You're following orders. We understand that. But you need to go home and tell them. Tell them that humans aren't what the Council thinks. We're not monsters, but we won't be caged anymore. Tokvar was treated and sent back to Council space with other prisoners. He told his story. Many didn't believe him. But others began to wonder. If humans were truly barbaric, why did they treat prisoners well? If they were uncontrolled and violent, why did they show mercy? Meanwhile, Elena Vasquez was busy with a different kind of warfare. Diplomacy. She reached out to Council species who had always been uncomfortable with human restrictions. The Ven, the Talish, the Morden, species who had themselves been bullied or controlled. The Council claims to speak for all of us, she told them. But do they? Or do they speak only for the powerful species who control the votes? Join us, not in war but in demanding reform. Several species quietly withdrew their support from the Council war effort. They didn't join humanity, but they stopped actively opposing them. The Council's unity began to crack. On Earth, in a secret research facility, scientists unveiled their masterpiece. Dr. Sarah Kimura presented it to President Okonkwo and Admiral Park. "We call it the Hammer," Dr. Kimura said. "It's a weapon system we've been developing for 120 years. The Council said certain technologies were too dangerous to pursue. We pursued them anyway." The holographic display showed a ship unlike anything the galaxy had seen. It was massive, but that wasn't what made it special. The Hammer used quantum-entangled weapons that could strike targets light years away. Instantly. It was theoretically impossible. The Council's own scientists had proven it couldn't work. "How?" Okonkwo asked. "They were right," Dr. Kimura said. "It shouldn't work. But humans are good at making impossible things work. We're stubborn that way." "When can it be deployed?" Admiral Park asked. "It's already in position," Dr. Kimura smiled. "We built it in sections over decades. The Council inspected every piece and found nothing wrong. They never imagined we could assemble something like this." The Hammer's first test was against a Council stronghold called Bastion 7. It was a fortress that had never fallen in 2,000 years. The Council believed it was invincible. The Hammer fired from beyond the system, from a position the Council didn't even know existed. The beam traveled through quantum space, bypassing normal physics entirely. Bastion 7's shields didn't even register the attack before it hit. The fortress didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, converted to energy in a microsecond. The message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere, anytime. No Council position was safe. Admiral Zixathara heard about Bastion 7 and felt his blood run cold. "They can destroy our bases from anywhere in the galaxy," he said to Score. "How do we fight that?" "Maybe we don't," Score replied quietly. "Maybe the Council was wrong about the humans. Those words would have been treason a month ago." Now Zixathara found himself agreeing. He had fought humans. He had lost to them repeatedly, and he had learned to respect them. They don't want to conquer us, he realized. They just want to be free. Everything we were told about them being dangerous expansionists was a lie. They're defending themselves. In the Council chambers, panic was setting in. Speaker Thulzan faced angry representatives from dozens of species. "You promised this would be quick," a Ven delegate shouted. "You said the humans were weak. Instead, we're losing ships, bases, and soldiers. And for what? So you can maintain control over one species?" Other voices joined in. The coalition was fracturing. Species that had voted for war were now having second thoughts. The costs were too high and victory seemed impossible. Thulzan tried to maintain order, but even he could see the truth. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated humanity not for days or weeks, but for 3 centuries. And now, the price of that arrogance was being paid in blood. On the human side, Captain Chen and the Defiance continued their raids. They hit supply convoys, destroyed communication relays, and generally made the Council's life miserable. But Chen never forgot his orders. Avoid civilian casualties. Show mercy when possible. Fight with honor. "We're better than they think we are," he told his crew. "We're not the monsters they feared. We're just people who were pushed too far. Let's make sure they understand the difference." After 3 months of warfare, the strategic situation was clear. Humanity was winning. Not through overwhelming force, but through superior tactics, better technology, and unbreakable unity. The Council outnumbered them, but it didn't matter. Humans fought smarter, adapted faster, and refused to quit. More importantly, humanity was winning the moral argument. Across the galaxy, species were asking questions. Why had the Council restricted humanity so harshly? What had humans actually done to deserve it? And why were the humans showing mercy to enemies while the Council showed none? The Council's authority was crumbling. And in the shadows, some Council species began secret negotiations with humanity, not for peace terms, but for something more. Alliance. The galaxy was changing. The old order, where the Council dictated terms to everyone, was dying. And from its ashes, something new was being born. A galaxy where humanity had earned its place not through submission, but through strength, courage, and the stubborn refusal to ever give up. The war wasn't over, but everyone could see how it would end. The question wasn't if humanity would win. The question was what would come after. 8 months after the war began, the human fleet arrived at the Council homeworld. Not to destroy it, to make a point. Admiral Jennifer Park stood on the bridge of the UHSV Adamant, humanity's first true battleship. Around her, 300 warships held position in perfect formation. Below them, the Council homeworld rotated slowly, its billion inhabitants watching the sky in fear. All weapons locked on designated targets, her tactical officer reported. We can destroy their orbital defenses in 30 seconds. But we won't, Admiral Park said firmly. We're not here to kill. We're here to talk. She opened a channel to the planet's surface. This is Admiral Jennifer Park of the United Human Space Fleet. We request an immediate meeting with the Galactic Council. You have been trying to reach us about peace terms. We're ready to discuss them, but this time we meet on equal footing. The response took only minutes. The Council had no choice. Their fleet was shattered, their authority was broken, and their homeworld was at humanity's mercy. Speaker Thulzahn himself appeared on the screen, his mandibles trembling. Admiral Park, your fleet will be permitted to land. But surely such a show of force is unnecessary for peace talks. Park smiled coldly. We learned from you, Speaker. 300 years ago you arrived at Earth with overwhelming force and dictated terms. We're simply returning the gesture. The difference is we're giving you a choice. On the planet's surface, the council chamber was half empty. 15 species had already withdrawn from the council entirely. Others had sent only minor representatives. The great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was falling apart. Elena Vasquez walked into that chamber once more. But everything was different. She wore no diplomatic uniform. Instead, she wore the uniform of the United Human Government, her head held high. Behind her walked President Sarah Okonkwo, flanked by military officers. The aliens who remained looked at them with expressions ranging from fear to respect. Gone was the casual dismissal, the arrogant superiority. They had learned what humanity was capable of when pushed too far. President Okonkwo stood at the center of the chamber and began to speak. Her words were transmitted across the entire galaxy. Members of the Galactic Council, we stand here today not as conquerors, but as equals. For 300 years you treated humanity as children who needed guidance, as primitives who needed control, as dangers that needed to be contained. She paused, letting her words sink in. You were wrong. We were never primitive. We were learning. We were never dangerous because of lack of control. We were dangerous because you tried to cage us. You mistook patience for weakness and restraint for surrender. Speaker Thulzahn tried to speak, but Okonkwo raised her hand. I am not finished. You will listen now as we listened for 3 centuries. The chamber fell silent. The war is over, Okonkwo continued. Not because you defeated us, but because we choose to end it. We could destroy this world. We could shatter what remains of your fleet. We could make the council kneel. But that's not who we are. She looked around the chamber. Humanity seeks peace. We always have. But we will never again accept peace at the cost of our freedom. So here are our terms. A holographic display appeared, showing the treaty humanity had prepared. Elena watched the aliens read it, saw their expressions change from fear to surprise. We're not demanding submission, Okonkwo said. We're demanding equality, full sovereignty for humanity, with no restrictions on our growth or development, reparations for 3 centuries of suppression, to be paid in technology transfers and resources, equal representation in a reformed Galactic Council, one that actually serves all species, not just the powerful ones. She paused. And one more thing. War crimes tribunals. Every council leader who ordered attacks on civilian colonies will face justice. We have the evidence. We have the witnesses. You will be held accountable. The chamber erupted in protests. Several council members stood shouting. But Okonkwo simply waited. Eventually, they realized she held all the power. The human fleet above could enforce any term they chose. These terms are too harsh. A Valorian representative shouted, are they? Elena spoke for the first time. Your species enslaved the Talish for 200 years before the council forced you to stop. The Krellians conquered 6 worlds before anyone said no. The council itself has destroyed 3 entire civilizations it deemed too dangerous. Don't talk to us about harsh terms. We're offering you something you never offered anyone else. A chance to survive with dignity. Admiral Zixthera, present as a military observer, rose. I have fought the humans, he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. I have lost to them repeatedly, but they could have killed me a dozen times and chose not to. They treated our prisoners better than we treat our own wounded. They fight with honor we've forgotten. He looked at the other council members. These terms are more than fair. They are merciful. If our positions were reversed, would we be so generous? I think not, other voices joined in. Species who had secretly negotiated with humanity. Species who were tired of council control themselves. The momentum shifted. Admiral Park received a private message from President Okonkwo. Do you think they'll accept? They have to, Park replied. We destroyed their military capability. But more importantly, we destroyed their myth. They're not invincible. They're not superior. They're just old and scared of change. The negotiations lasted 3 days. In the end, the Council accepted humanity's terms with minor modifications. The formal treaty was signed in the same chamber where Elena had been dismissed 8 months earlier. But the treaty was only the beginning. The real change was happening across the galaxy. Species who had been bullied by the Council for centuries were speaking up. Reforms were demanded. The old guard was being replaced. 6 months later, Elena stood in a new chamber. The Reformed Galactic Assembly, it was called. 47 species were still members, but now 12 more had joined, including 3 who had been denied membership for centuries because they were deemed too weak. Humanity held a permanent seat, with veto power. Not because they demanded it, but because even former enemies agreed they had earned it. Elena looked around at the delegates. Some were friendly, some were wary. A few were still hostile, but all of them respected humanity now. Captain Marcus Chen retired from military service and became an ambassador. His first assignment was to the Krellian homeworld. Admiral Zix Thera met him at the spaceport. I never thought I'd welcome a human to my world, Zix Thera said. I never thought I'd be welcomed, Chen replied. They walked together through the capital city. People stopped to stare at the human, but there was curiosity rather than fear. Your people changed everything, Zix Thera said. The galaxy will never be the same. That was the point, Chen said. We didn't want to rule the galaxy. We just wanted to be free in it. You achieved that, but you also inspired others. The Ven are demanding representation. The Talish want reparations for their enslavement. The Morden are questioning council authority. You started a revolution, Chen smiled. Good. The old system needed to die. Maybe something better can replace it. On Earth, President Okonkwo prepared to leave office. Her successor would inherit a humanity that was finally free, finally equal. In her final address, she spoke to all of humanity. We won the war, she said, but winning was never the goal. Freedom was the goal. Respect was the goal. The right to live as equals in this galaxy. We have achieved that, but we must never forget the cost. Thousands died in this war, humans and aliens both. We honor them by building a better future. She paused. Some ask if we should have fought, if we should have tried harder to find peace. I say we tried for 300 years. We exhausted every peaceful option. When peace through negotiation fails, sometimes peace must be won through strength. We did what we had to do. Elena, now the human representative to the Reformed Assembly, visited the memorial on New Kyoto. Names of the fallen covered a wall that stretched for hundreds of meters. She found one name in particular. David, her former aide, had died in the 3rd month of the war when his ship was destroyed during a raid. We won, David, she said softly. We're free. I hope it was worth it. A young human approached her. Ambassador Vasquez. I'm Lieutenant Sarah Kim. I wanted to thank you. My parents lived their whole lives under council rule. They died believing humans would always be second class. But I'll live free because of what you did. Elena looked at the young woman. Never forget the price. Never take freedom for granted. And never let anyone tell you that patience means accepting injustice. We were patient for 3 centuries because we hoped for better. When hope failed, we fought. Remember that, years passed. The Reformed Assembly became a true representative body. Human technology spread across the galaxy, helping species that had been left behind. The war was remembered not as humanity's conquest, but as the moment the galaxy learned to respect strength combined with mercy. Admiral Park, now in her 90s, gave a final interview before her death. Do you regret the war? The reporter asked. I regret every death, Park said. Every ship destroyed, every life lost. But I don't regret fighting. The council gave us no choice. They pushed and pushed until we pushed back. The lesson isn't that violence is the answer. The lesson is that patience has limits and respect must be earned, not demanded.